Right, here we go. It's on Lightshed. It's Seli versus Matticus. Matticus, of course, a beast of a player, one of our finalists from last year. Yeah, but of course then he played Terran. In other exciting news, maybe, I don't know, I've been mucking about with this edge. You might even be able to see me. I'm not sure why you would want to. But you might, you know, arguably the one thing you'll see is the disappointment on my face when these two players fail to blow my mind. Anyway, it's Matticus in the bottom right corner. It is Seli in the top, also a seasoned vet of StarCraft. So I'm expecting wonderful, wonderful things from these players. As I say, it's pretty dark in here. I don't like to have the lights on when I'm playing. I prefer it like dark, but for the glow, the warming glow of the mighty monitor. So I don't even know if you can see me at all, and there's a reasonable chance I've fudged the sort of replay software, so maybe you can't. Anywho, let's talk about Scraft. Yeah, Matticus, previously a Terran player, now playing Protoss. So we'll see what sort of builds he's going to crack out. You know, last time around he was pretty good at macro, and you can see that he has, like, straight off the bat, he's consistently built workers. We're at 1 minute 23, the min is saturated, he's mining gas with 3 workers. On the other side of the map, Seli mining gas with 3 workers, 2 workers short of saturation. That is to be expected. Protoss does get ahead of Terran in terms of worker count, not least because one of the Terran workers is always out building something, and if he isn't, you're not building stuff, and you should be. But also because the Protoss has available to them chrono boost, so they can build workers faster. That is offset by the fact that Terrans can get this orbital command, which allows them to drop mules, so it all kind of evens out in terms of total income. Both of these players getting a reasonably quick expand on, so so far neither player disappointing. Matticus has got this sort of cautionary zealot on the map, ready to see off whatever comes, really. I mean, what you'd expect from a Terran is a Reaper, and there is a Reaper in production. Reapers, you know, you should never lose a Reaper to a Zealot, because the Reaper can just kite the Zealot all day long. You can just dance around it. They're so much quicker. But nevertheless, I don't dislike getting a Zealot out to deal with a Reaper, because, you know, a Reaper takes a day to kill a Zealot. It can kill it, but it just takes such a long time. It's such a faff of micro. So if your Zealot is chasing the Reaper, in the event that your Terran opponent kills the Reaper, trust me on this, they will have had to micro their heart out. They'll have just been spending all of their time and energy microing that Reaper, stutter stepping the Reaper, trying to be fancy. And they might kill your Zealot, but you'll have absorbed so much of their APM that they will definitely be behind a macro. So the Zealot simply allows you to ignore the Reaper, send the Zealot after the Reaper, and let it chase it around. And it just means you're not going to lose any workers to the Reaper. You don't have to worry about it. Oh my goodness, oh Seli, don't do that. I think Seli actually wasn't even looking. I think what he'd done was shift-clicked the Reaper around the back of the mineral line there to have a scout of his opponent's base. And he has, in his defense, successfully done that. So this is what he knows. If he clicked on this, he would have seen that it was another gateway. He saw the forge, and I think he also saw that the forge was running an upgrade. Now, interestingly, it's +1 attack coming in. I've talked about this before, but I'll mention it again here. You know, as Protoss against the Terran, you always go armor first, just always. Seli with a couple of Widow Mines, and I like that. I like to see that a lot, the starport coming. I'd really like to see a Widow Mine drop. I'd love to see the medevac come out really sharpish. I also like this burrowed mine in the mineral line. And I'll tell you for why. You know, a really common opening from Protoss, it's less common since they got nerfed, but a common opening from Protoss used to be to get an Oracle across the map against Terran and kill some workers. One mine hit will kill an Oracle, so I quite like the Oracle burrowed in the mineral line there. And then if the Oracle doesn't show up, this would be a bit late for an Oracle. It's normally about 3.5 to 4 minutes. That's when they show up. You can then send the Widowmine across the map and try and get some damage done. So at present, both players done a pretty good job of macroing up. Matticus more so, and that is not necessarily reflected in the mineral income, because Seli has got these mules mining right now. But it is reflected in the gas income. Looks 600 odd to 300 odd. Now, to be fair, Terrans don't need as much gas, especially with a marine heavy army. They just don't need as much. Protoss units do require a lot of gas. I did notice it was a very lit side core coming down from Matticus, so he's not entirely used to the sort of the way that the tech works for Protoss. But in general, you build the side core immediately after your first gateway. Maybe you go gateway Nexus side core. Maybe you go gateway side core Nexus. For me, that sort of depends on what you see when you scout, which Matticus has simply not done. So he's no idea what's coming here. There could be battle cruisers about to appear in his main base for all he knows. At 6 minutes 10, the first battle cruiser could sort of arrive here and just wreck a mineral line. And in fact, with our really determined push, we're not far off the time where 2 battle cruisers could come in, and 2 battle cruisers would kill these stalkers and just win the game for him, because there's nothing else here that shoots up. The scan comes in, and I like what I'm seeing from Seli. He did do the scout with the Reaper. The scan also sees these 2 Stargates. I think he sees both of them, which is a real giveaway. So assuming he clicked on these, and you'd like to think you would if you've bothered to drop the scan, if you see something in production, and click on it and see what it is. So double Stargate kind of gives you a big hint as to what's coming up. Twilight Council coming down as well here, and this all feels a little confused. We've got a Robo, we've got a Twilight, we've got the 2 Stargates, Fleet Beacon about to appear as well. Sort of suggests that Matticus doesn't have anything very specific in mind. It's just getting a little bit of everything. And why would you have something in mind when you don't know what your opponent is doing? So the +1 attack is going to be grit for the Terran Marines. It's still not a disastrously large army here, but you wouldn't want to be the zealot that walks up this ramp, because the siege tanks are in position. There's a bunker here. You can't get past these buildings. You would not want to try and attack into this. It would take a huge army to be able to just bust through here. Matticus doesn't have the right unit come to try that. The zealots would be meleeing away against these buildings and would just get wrecked by the siege tanks, having killed nothing. Stalkers are pretty squidgy. They would die to the siege tanks as well. The Immortal would stand strong for a while, but this army would at present just get wrecked. Now, with that said, it's Seli that's going to go for the move out here. There's always defender's advantage, and Terrans are very good at defending because they've got siege tanks essentially, and the siege tank is a fantastic defensive unit. So we'll see what's going to happen here. There are quite a few zealots. Is charge done? It is halfway done. Charge can make a big difference to this, because when the siege tanks siege up, the zealots can get on top of things. Oh, the siege tanks do have to siege up though, and they're not sieging up. This Widowmine can make a big difference. It needs to burrow though. He needs to burrow it, and he hasn't burrowed it. So some pretty shonky micro here happening from Seli. Finally, the siege tanks siege up. Matticus has come forward with the Immortals, but it just looks like he hasn't got enough. The Terran army was pretty feisty. Arguably, Seli could have achieved that victory there with substantially fewer losses. He had time to siege up the siege tanks. When you've got 4 siege tanks, the way you can work it, you siege 2 up, you move the other 2 forward, then you siege up the forward 2, and you move the back 2 forward, and so on. And you kind of leapfrog them past each other. So it looks like Seli's just going to come in here and crush, basically. Now, hopefully he is still building stuff at home. He is. So I really like what I'm seeing. You know, he hasn't taken his foot off the gas, and to be fair, neither player has. Both of these, like these Marines are a bit confused here with the Zealot and the. Both of these players are still producing stuff even while there is battle happening, and that is, to be honest, one of the key mistakes that new players to StarCraft make, is they watch the fight and they forget to continue building stuff. So if they, you know, perhaps win the battle but end up losing all their stuff, they realize that suddenly they've got an enormous mineral bank and no units, which isn't much cop. So it is really important that you just continue to build everything, you know, and that's what we're seeing. Look, there's upgrades coming, there's units being built, there's a starport being built, there's mules being dropped. Seli is playing a good game here, and I really like what I'm seeing. Matticus, none too shabby either. We've still got units in production. You know, he was looking to get the carriers up. Carriers, great in large numbers, they will wreck absolutely everything. But you do need to get them in sufficient number. In terms of what you put under, that's weird the way the sound kind of goes quiet for those Marines. In terms of what you put underneath the carriers, Immortals wouldn't normally be the choice. You need, in general, Templars is what you put under carriers, especially if you're against Marines. So you get the Templar archives done. All these poor Immortals have come out on a rally point and have died. So the fight in the end looked reasonably one-sided, but I'll be honest, I think that was one of the best games I've seen, in terms of both of the players macroing up hard, both of the players looking in great shape after 6 or 7 minutes, and as I say, you know, even when the fight got going there, neither of these players stopped producing. So GG.